Ladies and gents, we'll get rolling here. Today we're going to talk about filling your pipeline with leads, and I'm super excited to have Shawn Butler on with us. Shawn's a consummate marketer, right? You stop me when I go wrong on this, but your background, you've been in a couple big agencies, and then started your own agency. You've exited to yourself, so kind of an interesting spot, right? You got two personal exits. And we're in like exit planning world on this call today, so I feel like you might be qualified to talk to this audience. And right now, you run Relevant, right? A marketing agency, really geared towards growth, right? Is that accurately stated? Sound about right?
Yes. Yeah. The punchline of that is I'm an agency for agencies.
There you go. Yeah, so, right. The cobbler has no shoes, right? Agencies need help too. So, and I think I left out probably like an MBA along the way, and you're an adjunct professor, teach a whole bunch of things, and you kind of know what you're doing, right?
I have 2 master's degrees, which just tells you my levels of insecurity, that I needed approval. I needed formalized permission to say, you know what you need to know at an early age. So yeah, I have 2 master's degrees, and I fell in love with academia. So I've been guest lecturing, teaching, professing for, probably 12 years, 11 years now.
Nice. Well, cool. So today we're going to talk about filling your pipeline, right? And, I feel like the catchy thing here is the 10x your network or 20x your network. And if anybody here who travels in like sort of growth hacker circles, I feel like that's one of the things du jour to talk about, or at least for the past couple of years. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, and get under the hood a little bit on how we might do that. And then this idea of like, how do you talk to strangers? How do you do that magic trick of getting strangers to turn into clients without being out there begging for it, right? So let's jump in, Shawn. Why don't you probably do a little bit better job than I would on your background. Why don't you kick this thing off, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm a low energy guy. I try to keep it low key, but let me just say, what we're going to cover today is really exciting stuff. Like, this is the thing. If you want to pull out paper and a pen and take notes, like I always tell my students to do, we are going to give you that information. We want to give you that solution. This is actionable. I've been on programs and set up things where they talk. It's all theory. It's all academics. And that's not the business I'm in. My favorite professors were the practitioners, the consultants, the ones who also owned businesses. So you mentioned it. I've owned 3 agencies of my own. I spent 12 years in big agency, traditional agency with Fortune 500, Fortune 100 clients. I worked for T-Mobile, Toyota, Subway, Doctors Association, the company that owns Subway, franchisor. And with all of those, the answer is, how do I get more clients? How do we make more money? And I'll give you a little of my bio here, as I think it's most interesting and relatable to this audience. But all of that's just setting you up to say, who's this guy? Where's he coming from? What does he talk about? And I will tell you the facts. Money isn't everything. More money isn't mean you're more happy. More money, more problems is
that's what Biggie said.
I've heard that.
Alan's not nodding along over here with me. He gets it.
But there are a few things in your business that aren't solved by adding more paying clients. Those are the kind of problems you want to have to solve, right?
Well, growth solves problems, right?
Growth solves problems,
right?
So you mentioned today I own an agency. It's called Relevant Business Development. There's an empire under that. We have a few different versions. We have Relevant for realtors, Relevant for mortgage lenders, Relevant for agencies, Relevant for nonprofits is an operation we started when my wife turned to me and said, does what you do work for nonprofits? And I said, yes. And she said, well, we were going to start a nonprofit. And I said, I'm terrible at that. I'm not wired that way. Let people who run
for those paying attention, money's not everything, but not really good at nonprofit. I think I heard that right.
You're reading between the lines. And the short answer was, I said, I'm not great at running a nonprofit. I don't want to add that skill set at this point in my career, but I can help them do what they do better. And so that's that. The other business that ties up a lot of my time is agency growth consulting. And agency growth consulting is probably of interest to this audience. I work with agency owners who want to grow, scale, sell, eventually exit their agencies. There are a lot of people in my industry, meaning small to mid-size agencies, digital marketing, PR, communications, you know the type, that have this dream of selling, have a dream of making the exit happen, and they think it's going to happen sooner and for a lot more money,
and with a lot less work that goes into it.
So I get to be the bearer of that nice, pragmatic, often thoroughly disappointing news when I say I've been there, I've seen it, I know a bit about it, I've helped orchestrate it, with others, and there's some things in it you need to know. So if you're looking at the slide, for 7 years while I worked in traditional agency, I ran a side hustle. As many of you know, people find out you're good at something, and they ask you to do it in your spare time. And how many of you have friends that are mechanics that you've asked to look at something on your car, right? That's how we get into this business.
Yep.
And it's no different for small business owners, that it's something I was getting paid for and doing for clients through my business. Then I had other people approaching me, and I call it the other 9 to 5, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. was the hustle. I did that for a dozen years. You saw I have an MBA and an MS in marketing, data analytics. So that's the approach I've taken. So a lot of people hear agency owner and they think I'm a creative, right? They think I write viral tweets and Super Bowl ads. That's not my world. I'm a data guy. I like processes, systems, operations, spreadsheets, regression analysis curves. Like that's my jam. That's the part of agency I'm in.
Right.
And I'll flesh this story out a little later as we get talking, Dan. But in 2015, 2012-ish, I built my own agency with a couple of buddies. We grew it. We moved to nice monthly revenue. But the key parts of that story are we had to stop doing what was comfortable, what we'd always been doing, which is silly stuff you'll recognize. We were reliant on word of mouth. We were reliant on past customers. We were reliant on referrals to keep doing business. And if I can tell you what you already know, referrals and word of mouth is the best way to get new clients. People who already know who you are, love you, have seen your stuff, talking about you to their friends. It's magic. It's the best way. It's the right way to do business. The hard truth is, it's the least reliable, the least scalable, the least predictable. And we're going to use the word predictable a lot. You already know that's one of my favorite words in business because it's the opposite of the gambler mentality. So I'm giving you highlights of my thinking and an overview of where we're going today, just so you can, you're not following in the dark. You can plot this out and see what we're trying to do. But in 2015, we had someone come in, offer more than we expected, and we were able to orchestrate an agency exit and get out of that business. And I turned to my wife and I said, I was 36 and I said, made a bunch of money, had a lot of success. What do we want to do with our lives next? And my short answer was, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to run another agency full of 20-year-olds, managing them, getting them to work, making them busy at work, all the stuff that came along with that. I said,
feeding and nurturing of the workforce.
It was beautiful. I got to write so many recommendations and help so many of my employees go to work for my competitors. I was offering an internship and free training. It turned out to go staff our competitors. I'm not bitter. It was an enjoyable job, but I said, what I really enjoyed was the last 9 months. Let me tell you about the last 9 months before the exit. And you never know it's going to be 9 months when you start this process. We didn't know if it'd be 3 months. We thought it'd be 2 weeks, or if it's going to be 3 years or 13 years. But the last 9 months that really were the build up to the exit for us, we had made a lot of decisions. Mm-hmm. This is instructive. This is a story, but there's a lot of lessons in this story. And often this is the first stage of my consulting engagement is let me tell you this story and let you Q&A, because there's so much in this that I learned the hard way. We're doing work for anybody. We were working with, a tax accountant because they were across the street. We were working with a plastic surgeon because one of our employees knew them. We were working with a dentist because it was one of our employees' uncles, right? We were doing that kind of business. We were taking anybody with money into the business and we were working with them. And that pays the bills. That pays the bills most months. But it's not predictable. It doesn't have this nice, comfortable thing that marketers refer to as a pipeline, right? We don't know where the next lead's coming from. And if I can preach for a second, don't let me get on my soapbox too much too early, but everything in your business changes when you know where your next client is coming from.
Right. It's powerful.
When you don't know, where are you at, right? How does it feel when you don't know where your next client's coming from? You're saying yes to bad deals. You're saying yes to bad fits. You're discounting prices in some ways. You're cutting your commission. You can smell it. The customer knows when you're desperate, when you're needy, when you're hungry. And there's a difference between hungry, go get them, Gary Vaynerchuk mentality, hustle,
right, to
please let this happen for me. I need this.
Right.
So, let's talk through a little bit of that. But once we nailed down who we wanted to work with, that's the next stage here, is when you know a few things that aren't working, your job in business, in life, is to figure out how to quit doing those things that aren't working.
Right.
It's as important to know what doors you want to close as it is which doors you want to keep open. So we stopped doing things that weren't working. And we started doing, ironically, for ourselves, the stuff we were doing for our clients.
Interesting.
And so that's where we're headed today, is I want to cover some of that. Start with who, have a plan, predictability, the 4 C's of selling, and then down here, pipeline means sell at scale.
If we're talking selling, I think we're on the wrong webinar here today. I'm not going to get that one, but yeah, let's do it. So I just want to recap here for a second. You talked about the last 9 months, you started doing things differently, but other things I heard you say, and I hope we're going to talk about this today, focus on data and analytics, right? Like, I think many people, most of us, when we think marketers, it's like writing Hallmark cards and not managing data, but that's important stuff. So I hope we talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah.
And then, the scalability of word of mouth. So I'm looking forward to that. So let's dive back in here and we'll rock and roll through it.
Cool. It's a dumb statement. I looked online to figure out who said it. There are multiple attributions for it, but you know this to be true in your gut. Your network is your net worth. The people who know who you are, who like you, who trust you, who would call you, who are going to refer business to you, is so valuable. But how do you expand your network?
Right.
Let's talk about, I don't know how the rest of y'all did, but 2020 where I live was crazy. How's that for an understatement, Dan?
I don't know. What happened in 2020? Alan, you remember anything? No, we got nothing up here.
2020 was a hard year. 2020 was a hard year for a lot of people, especially the small business owner. If you own Netflix or Amazon or Peloton or there were a lot of businesses.
I have one of those.
It was a good year for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
It was a bad year for those of us who are not mega multinational corporations. There it is. A fine point made is 2020 changed a lot of things. In the past, there were methods you would use. How many of you were members of a networking group, a chamber of commerce? How many of you relied on dinners, banquets, events like luncheons that just didn't happen? It's been a year. So I live in North Carolina. I live on some land outside of Raleigh. I told you after I sold my agency, I told my wife, we can live anywhere. We can do anything. What do we want to do? And we said, let's be 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains, and about 4 hours from my in-laws. And it felt like the perfect setting for us. So we love our lives here in the Raleigh area. We got a bunch of land. We built a tree fort that mirrors the Ewok village in our Carolina pine forest back here during quarantine. And it's been a wild year for a lot of things, a lot of free time, but I designed my life that way. And this isn't that conversation, but I designed my life to have a lot more free time in it, to deal with a lot less people. But it didn't change the fact that quarantine kept us all in our homes, kept us all out of those rubbing elbows, making eye-to-eye, belly-to-belly conversations that led to so much of your business development pipeline. I'm just going to say biz dev because I think we're having a very high context conversation. That biz dev happened when you were able to engage and interact.
Right.
That did not happen for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
The way
Yeah. And looking at, a bunch of the folks that I know that are sitting online here with us, I think a lot of these folks, well, like me, spend a lot of time out at lunches, a lot of time at breakfasts, those sorts of interactions where you have an opportunity to have a one-to-one interaction and, sort of build a relationship, build trust, build rapport, et cetera. So yeah, to your point, 2020 was the opposite of that, right? So we've got to dial in something that solves for that big hole in our calendar.
You needed another solution. You needed something else that was working, and a lot of people found it. A lot of us spent a lot more time on Zoom calls, right? A lot of us spent a lot more time on the phone again, dusting off this whole device that keeps surprising us that it does more than just take pictures with the internet. And that's good, but the word you keep hearing me say and is key to what you're doing with creating an exit is scalability. It just isn't there. So I've got good news for you. COVID was not responsible for all of that. In fact, this process was seen coming. So if you can see my screen, I'm sharing a slide right now that has data. And this is a little dense. I'm not going to go all the way through it. You can look it up. This is by a consulting group called Accenture. It's the largest consulting group in the world.
Heard of them.
They paid a lot of money to know what they're talking about. This was published in Harvard Business Review at the start of last year. So this was written in pre-COVID.
Right.
Report. And what you'll get from this report, just breezing through it, is marketing was always destined to go the direction it's gone. Those changes were not stirred by a worldwide pandemic. Those changes were ushered in by changes in technology and data, organizational goals, and new growth stages. This is what we've moved to. In the old days, the marketing golden era, Mad Men, was the 60s and 70s of mass marketing. I've written papers on this you don't need to hear, but in that day, your job was to get a jingle that's stuck in their head, pop, pop, fizz, fizz, and then roadblock the 4 radio stations and the 3 TV channels and just mass produce, just inundate, steamroll your audience into singing your jingle, right? That was marketing 101 back then. That was how it worked. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't work anymore. If you can buy every TV station, radio network, podcast, take your money and go to the bank, buy Super Bowl ads and just block it all out, that probably still would work. But what we had, the transition was really moving out of mass market into segmentation, into customer focus in the 90s, to a loyalty focus, which you'll feel, people, about our age, Dan, I'll remember this movement of suddenly companies had the ability with a CRM to know what your purchase behavior was, what your patterns were, what coupons go in advance to you. There's a great case study that Target knew when this couple's daughter was pregnant before they did because of the coupons they were sending them. They said, is there a conversation we need to have? In 2020s, that last, the current next step is towards relevance. And relevance is piggybacking on top of market research, enterprise IT, enterprise CRM systems that are unlike anything that existed before. And what they call in this spreadsheet, I'll just read it to you, digitization of everything. If we know everything is there, your job becomes to personalize your experience to your customer. And that's a two-way street. Personalize and your services.
So Shawn, through this, sort of matrix, the 60s through now, I'm guessing that we haven't given up any of the prior columns. We're still doing segmentation. We're still doing, proposition innovation, but we're doing that in addition to personalization, right? We're just getting narrower and narrower and kind of like adding to this.
There's planned obsolescence. So there's some atavism or some devolution inside of that isn't worth going through, but it's been an evolution, right? It's been progress forward. There are things that fell off. You and I both know there are marketing practices that don't work anymore.
Not doing a lot of newspaper advertising, that sort of thing, maybe.
You don't get the 6 p.m. sitting down to dinner telemarketer calls anymore.
All the yellow pages. Yeah.
I get calls every once in a while from someone named Spam Risk, and I just don't take them.
Right.
With caller ID, we know how to block out certain channels. So certainly there's been an evolution, but the approach we want to take is optimization over time, right? So I think that's what is implied in this research. But my big takeaway from this is, because we can personalize, double-edged sword. Because you can personalize, the customer expects you to personalize. Right. Because you can know of their experience and your personality, the customer expects you to share your personality and your experience. So again, let's dive in. I got a bunch to cover, and I got to go fast. Apologies to Simon Sinek. I think this starts with making a hard decision, which is who. Start with who you want to work with. Start with who you are. Start with your own chemistry. Now, we made some promises at the top of this. We said, how do you 10x, 20x, 30x your network? I want to tell you, the way to do that comes after this step. So how's that for baiting you? Don't leave the webinar. We haven't covered it yet. It's coming. But for right now, the groundwork, right? You dig 85 meters down before they start building a skyscraper. Right now, we're in the foundation. This conversation has to start with, who are you and who do you want to work with? Well, let me just give a quick example. I knew I was getting on a webinar. I put on a button-up shirt. I have a well-watered plant. My microphone is off camera, and I've created my office to kind of look beachy to me. That's important to me. Dan knew he was getting on a webinar. He knows his audience. He's in a logo t-shirt, and he's chilling in his recording studio.
I'm suddenly feeling like attacked here because I don't know that I did any of the right stuff for this, but I got you, Shawn. I'll get you back later. Thank you.
No, the point is, which one of us is right? There is no right. There is no wrong. It's who you are. I'll tell you what you already know. The obvious projection I was making from that is, if you're a suit and tie guy, you should be working with investors, bankers, insurance. Those are your industries because they dress like you, they look like you. If you wear a suit and tie and you're trying to help, a multi-location pest control company, you're going to look weird. You're going to sound weird. You're going to be off base and out of touch.
Hey, so let's talk about this real quick, because I think our audience here, we've got a bunch of suit and tie guys and girls who potentially do want to work with that pest control company or, muddy boots construction kind of company.
Yeah.
So you've got a suit and you've got somebody wearing construction boots. Is that what we mean by fake it? Like, talk to me about fake it. Well, and then talk to me about authenticity. So how do we connect the dots?
Authenticity is really more about consistency and integrity. So let me hit this. Own your interesting. You are interesting. There are things about you that will be interesting to your customers. These are what we call secondary characteristics or personal attributes. Those are things that are a little malleable, right? We always know, don't talk about politics, religion, sex, like don't go into those areas with clients, but there are other things, your secondary characteristics that can be compelling, can be interesting to them. Those are the things you have to come up with. And I said, be interesting or fake it really just means know what your customer's into. So know who you are and know what they're into, and then align those things. So hopefully that kind of gives you my background. Authenticity is clutch. I work with agency owners because I know agency. I've been in it for 15 plus years now. That's my world.
Right.
I would be awkward. I would be out of my element. I'd be very unconversational if I, started to go work with lawyers, or if I started to go work with financial planners. Well, I know some financial planning, but there are industries where, like you said, there's muddy boot industries where they want to see you come to them as an expert. You can't get away from that, but relatable.
So you haven't said this word yet, but it feels like you're talking about getting niche, like getting more narrow and not going more broad, right? Like not everybody is a customer. And you started to say this before, like, your last 9 months running your original agency, you started to do things differently. You started to focus on the right customer, et cetera. And I'm sorry if I'm hijacking, one of your bullet points here, but is that where we're going, is niche down, get more narrow?
Don't worry about throwing off my slide presentation. Again, I just wanted a framework to walk through as we get there, but I intentionally left out part of that story. So in the last 9 months of my agency, we said no to a lot of people, and that's where I left it. Because we knew who to say yes to. So let me talk through this slide real fast.
Yeah.
Who are you? You're interesting. I knew agencies. Guess what we started selling to? We found out we had a few key things that were magic for us. This is what you need to get a multiplier. I'm talking to exit planners. You guys know what I'm talking about. Most businesses are worth about their book of business over a period of time. That's really what you're going to sell for. In order to get a multiplier, you usually need to have some sort of proprietary tech. We did not have that. You needed a brand name in your industry. We did not have that. So how did we get a decent multiplier out of our sale? The sale of our agency, we had a system to create predictable growth in our clients. And we had a niche. And so our niche, and I apologize to, grammar Nazis and Canadians, niche is how we say niche. And we have to say niche because it rhymes with the next thing I'm going to say, which is in the niches are riches. Which doesn't
I didn't think that's the rhyme you were going to go with, but
there's more to that rhyme. We already did our gangster rap reference on this.
We did.
So I say all that to get you to this point, which is we started selling our services to agencies. We became a reseller in that. It's only an integral part of the story if I tell you that I'd worked at several agencies. I knew the agency world. What we had developed at my agency was really low-cost labor. We were on a campus of my alma mater out in Provo, Utah. We were bringing in interns and doing we had a really low blended hourly rate. I mean, there's the bottom line of it is when people came and knocked on our door, they were interested in two things. How are you guys doing what you do so efficiently, high margin? And how are you guys bringing on such huge clients so consistently? And that's what I tell you about those 9 months is we had people look at our pro formas and say, is this pie in the sky? Where are these predictions coming from? And I said, that's actually based on 9 months of historic precedent, which is the only right answer, by the way. 12 months, 36 months of historic precedent is the only thing you should base projections on. Hope,
wishes,
dreams, vision boards, Ouija boards. None of that is the right answer. And there's a couple things you get from an MBA. One is I got really good at PowerPoint, which is obvious. I made these slides myself. The other is you get really good at Excel. And so I had beautiful pro formas, but the data behind them was solid because we started it when we knew who we wanted to work with and what we do and how it's different. So back to my slide here, we knew who our customer was. And when I say get way too specific, I will tell you, we knew our ideal customer was a small to mid-sized agency owner who was trying to offer full services. We knew their flaw. They could not be a full service agency. It's more true in 2021 than it was when we were doing this in 2013, 14, 15, is you can't offer a full spectrum of services without being a Publicis, a McCann, a Gray, or a Mullen. If you're not a global organization, you got people in-house, even in a few offices, you can't afford to have specialists in all those areas: social media, content creation, paid ad planning, content creation, all the stuff that we were offering, most of those agencies were not great at.
Right. And
so they needed somebody who could come in and do that. Well, they liked us because our blended hourly rates were ridiculous. They were 2-figure numbers, and they could go and resell what we were doing for $175, $250 an hour. And so we had a nice margin. We had a nice markup. We would show up, and we were the agency for agencies. So you saw this all evolve. And we knew how much they were paying their employees. We knew which clients they were working with, which industries they were in. That's what I mean by get way too specific. So let me pause because I want the emphasis to really land on this is when you decide who you are, it should develop from that who you want to work with, who you're the most comfortable around, and let me just throw this in. Past performance is no guarantee of future success. Neither is it an indicator that that's the industry you should be in. We work with agency owners who come to us and say, I've had a lot of success with, travel, tourism, restaurants. All of that has gone horribly down the drain last year.
Right.
And we say, who else would you want to work with? And they'll say, oh, I'd love to be working with infrastructure I know that industry. I'd love to be working with, banks and credit unions. And I'm like, bless your heart, which is what we say in the South when we're like, that's crazy. But bless your heart, you want to work with credit unions? Let's get you some credit unions. Let's get you in front of the people you want to work with and tell them what you do. Because I haven't said it yet, but marketing 101 is get the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And I'll beat this to death before we're done here, but right person is easy to find. Right message is my fourth arrow here. Why do they care? Why do they care? What do they care about? What do you want? What they need from you is the answer to what they care about. And if your service, your solution is the thing they need, oh, they care a lot. They care a lot, especially if it's attached to their pocketbook. So to my example, I knew agencies, I was brokering agencies, I was working with agencies, we were selling to agencies, and I walked in and I said this, my pitch was beautiful. It said, do you have somebody on staff who's an expert in SEO, SEM, PPC, social media content, social media strategy? And they would go, yeah, we covered all those. Or 90% of the time, no, we can't afford that. We don't have those expertise. And I said, what if we could do that? White label, sell it to you through you, and you would sell it to your clients at your usual pricing. And our pricing is, half to a third of, right. You get to put on 50 to 60 something percent margins on top of what we do. And they would either say, let's keep talking, or they would just pull their credit card out right there. Because when you know what the problem is, you know what solution they need. And your job becomes to solve that problem.
All right. So, Shawn, we talked about this a little bit the other day as we were prepping for this, but I'd like to drill down on this. Why should they care? What happens if you have a largely undifferentiated service? So how do we get to that point of caring if they could care equally about you or me?
There are a few different places where you can diversify and differentiate.
Yeah.
The main ones that'll work for you are price. This is the easiest one.
Right.
Price is a great differentiator. It's a race to the bottom. I will give you an old trope from business school. There's no strategic advantage in being the second lowest price.
Right.
If you're not the lowest, you might as well be the highest.
Right.
And so your goal actually becomes to not be in that sector, to be your sector of one, right? You want to be the only business that does what you do. So we mentioned pest control, and I have a buddy that owns a very successful pest control company, does not work very hard to make a lot of money. Happy to make that introduction if anyone wants to broker his exit. But in his industry, what he knows to be true is he is niched down so specifically. He only works certain blocks.
Yeah.
Certain geographic regions, because he knows who to sell, how to sell, where to price, who to even send of his salespeople to go through and make those deals. Do you know that about your customer?
Yeah.
My guess is you probably know it. You're just not acting on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've seen the same thing. We've got a client that's a big landscaping company, and same sort of thing. They like bombard small neighborhood blocks. Like, I'm going to work in this, 4-block radius. And if I can get a certain level of saturation there, everybody knows me. Everybody understands my pricing. Everything's transparent. I get a lot of efficiencies and economies of scale out of it. It's been super interesting to see how intelligently they focus geographically in this case, and then just have huge success with that and just sort of hopscotch from one to the next. But so let's backtrack. What if we're in a world where, let's think financial services, right?
We're not backtracking. We're going forward.
All right, we're going forward.
You just gave the next one. Price differentiation, lowest rung. There's 7 methods of differentiation. Sorry, you're in the middle of a college lecture all of a sudden. The next one you covered already is there's service differentiation, different geography, different offer, product differentiation. So those are your different versions there. The next one is, branding. These are harder as you go up, right? It's easier to change a geography than it is to change your brand.
Okay.
And branding is what we're going to talk about, for the next few slides in here, because branding is how somebody goes from not knowing who you are, not knowing you from Adam as the expression, to going through the mindset of already psychologically deciding they want to work with you before they ever meet you, before they ever step foot. So you're a stranger to them. Let me say that again. They're a stranger to you, but
Right.
they know you.
Right.
I'll tell a quick story of my buddy meeting Gary Vaynerchuk. I already mentioned Gary V once in this call, so we'll pretend that was on purpose as set up to this. He met Gary V. He's read Gary V's books. He's listened to hours of Gary V's video, his content, his podcasts.
Yep.
He felt like he knows Gary V. They talked for 15 minutes after his presentation. And Gary Vee turned to him, and the nice patient dude, if you know Gary Vee, that's sarcasm. He turns to him and says, "Who are you again?" And my buddy says, "That floored me, Shawn, because I know this guy's whole life story. He's never met me, never seen me, more than the discussion we had. But I showed up as a huge fan, thinking we were friends. And at the end of it, he shut me back down to, you're a stranger to me. You're a stranger to me."
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
You know what? That is the only way to do what we're building up to, which is to create relationships at scale. Is you need to have people who know who you are, know what you do, know how good you are at doing it.
Yeah. So let's talk through that. I don't even need to know the rest of our points of differentiation, because I want to spend some time on this. How do we?
Well, the other ones don't apply either. It's cause-based, which means you have to go be the Tom's shoes of exit strategy. So some of those just get into the too nebulous.
Yeah, we're gonna skip right over those. Let's talk about how to make friends with strangers. How do we do that? How do we get people to know Shawn?
Here, let me jump out, make sure we're not spending too much time looking at a slide that we don't need. The best way to make friends with strangers is to know who they are and know what they care about, and then find those points of connection where you can actually deliver information and value. So I will jump you back into a slide because you just walked through the 4 C's. So I have a framework for this too, just because I'm only happy when I have a slide to talk to. Sorry, the academic is showing up again. Let me again, I don't want to be tied to this, but this is such useful stuff. You've heard it probably before. You know this in a way that's familiar to you, but I call it the 4 C's of selling your service. And it's really creating value. Your first C is you have to establish credibility, right? They have to know you've done this before. You don't want to be a rank amateur. You don't want to be a guy that took a course or watched a YouTube video.
Slept at a Holiday Inn last night.
And you suddenly are saying, I can take care of you. Let me get you out of there. So I don't think that's who we're talking about. I don't think that's our concern. It's just conveying that credibility. Having it is one thing. Do they know you have that? The second C is capability. You can do this for them. That's the niche. That's what I'm talking about. Is there's a weird catch-22 in business. In marketing, it looks like this. People come up to me and say, I want a campaign like no one's ever seen before. Give me something. I want to be on TikTok or the Instagram or the whatever's next, Clubhouse mentality of I want to break all barriers and do something fresh and new. But, ready for the but Shawn, can you make sure it has 20 case studies and 12 months of proven history? Right? Do something innovative nobody's ever seen before, but don't make me take a risk. Don't make me walk out on the ledge of trying something experimental or new. That's the niche, is they want to know you know their business well enough that you're not learning on them. You're not cutting your teeth on their dime.
Right.
And so you need to say, I have done this before. I've done this for X, Y, and Z. If you've got case studies, that's the point to put them in.
Yep.
And then you say, and I can do this for you. Here's what that would look like. And this isn't a class on salesmanship, but that's where you paint the picture. That's where you build the dream. That's where you start saying things like, don't throw numbers. Don't give them a gut level evaluation. That doesn't buy you any credibility. But you say, for businesses like yours, this probably would interest you. And then you give them a content piece for free. Usually this is going to be a free content piece where you sell them nothing more than your expertise. Let me cover the 3rd and 4th C's, and then we'll come back to that point. But for those of you taking notes, we've said you need to be good at what you do, and then you need to know who cares about it, and then you need to put that message in front of that person. And we'll talk about the channel and the medium, because the medium is the message in this instance. But the 3rd C is chemistry. What does chemistry mean? it's the same thing as when you were, dating your wife. She has to like you. She has to want to spend more time with you. She has to be willing to commit, because this isn't a short-term relationship. This isn't a pizza delivery, right? When you're getting involved with a client, you're going to be in there for years, for decades sometimes, and moving towards these big goals that require trust. Well, you need to establish that very, very early on. So chemistry, and weirdly, chemistry doesn't mean they have to want a vacation with you. It doesn't mean that you're going to call them and text them, and invite them to there's a little basketball tournament happening this weekend. It's a big deal in my part of the country. But yeah. I'm not catching the NCAA. I'm going to a beach house with friends to watch it. Clients are not involved. You don't have to suddenly spend all your time with these people, but chemistry simply means they have to get you. They have to like you. They have to like your style. Don't change who you are. And that's key. That's back to our earlier, conversation, Dan, is don't change any of your primary characteristics. That's not authentic. It's not going to make you happy. It's going to make it hard on the business. Be who you are. Be true to who you are, but just be upfront about it. Be honest. People like interesting people, right? I'm not going to quote too much Brene Brown to you, but you can have flaws and mistakes and, a vulnerable past. And there's a way to tell that story that is going to be interesting and intriguing to the people who you will want to work with. And I'm about to use the L word in a business context, but you should love what you do. And your clients should love what you're doing. And if you're not happy about who you are, who you work with, how you deliver it, you're not showing up 100%. This isn't a mindset conversation, but that chemistry piece comes out when they are getting to know you and they're willing to give you the information you need. They're willing to work with you. They're willing to take the advice you have to give them, because I think I'm quoting Dan, but this is your number one asset. This is the most important decision financially that a lot of these business owners will make. And it should not be done as an accident. Right.
Very true.
The fourth one is cost, and cost is almost not worth mentioning, because if you've established value and they know you're the option, you're the only option. I like to say it like this: your job in marketing and sales is to tell your customer that you are the only source to give them the result that they most need. If you are the solution to the biggest problem in their life, cost is just a number. I mean, right? So cost comes last. Here's what's interesting about the 4 C's, the way I see them. With this framework, 3 of those 4 C's can and should be handled before you ever meet a client. Before you spend 1 second of your time or energy, face-to-face, Zooming, phone calls, whatever you call the next step, all of that can be handled, and it's not new. The way to do this is video.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about
video.
Well, first I have to tell you all the stuff that doesn't work anymore. We used to put, 25 people at dinner in the back of an Olive Garden, or 100 people in a room at a Marriott. Not only is that not COVID approved, it was never efficient. It was never destined for long-term efficiency. It's not effective today. People don't like to feel trapped. They don't like to feel coerced. People like to buy, but nobody wants to be sold. You've heard this, right?
Right on.
Everybody likes to buy. Ask Amazon what just happened to everybody's stimulus checks, and people have money burning holes in their pockets to go spend it on something that they're excited about. But nobody wants to feel like their arm was twisted. They were convinced, they were finagled, they were somehow forced into a buying decision. So you've heard of the marketing funnel. We're not showing the slide for it, but the marketing funnel used to be, you tell somebody what you do, they weigh all their options, and then they pick the one that's best for them. It's gotten much more complicated. Now, it really is the buyer's timeline, the buyer's decision. The buyer controls the whole situation. So how does a marketer play when I'm sitting here telling you it's the buyer's timeline, the buyer's decision? The buyer dictates whether you're going to move forward or not, because they're savvy, they're sophisticated. We use these words, and it's not just, buyers. You're the same way. Think about the last time you bought a car. The minute the salesman said, hey, what's it going to take to get you into a new one of these today? And he shows you, a Camaro, and you're there with your wife looking for a minivan, you're not communicating. You're not having a real conversation. You're being sold.
Right.
People hate it. It's spammy. It's disrespectful. It is shotgun, prescriptive, bad marketing. And so I told you, when I started my third agency, this one, Relevant, I named it the word that was the exact opposite of what I thought was all wrong with all of marketing today. That if you're being spammy, disrespectful, throwing out irrelevant messages to people who don't care, you're not doing marketing. You're wasting probably a lot of time, energy, money, and burning a lot of bandwidth and goodwill. And that's, obviously not the path we want to be on. So I feel like I need to hit my summary and answer your questions. I just checked the clock, and I did what I thought I would do, which was I rambled a lot about the things that were exciting to me. And I want to make sure I answer the questions of things that are interesting, intriguing, and of most value to this audience.
So let's drill down on video a little bit here.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, we're on video right now. Everybody's on Zoom calls, 19 times a day or whatever it is. So what do we mean by video? How are we getting through, the 4 C's, and we've, sort of decided we're going to niche down, and we're owning the person that we are. What the heck does that mean for video?
That's a great summary. So the video you need to create needs to match the expectations of your audience and the chemistry, the method of business, your mannerisms that you want to convey.
All right. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You ready for this?
Do it.
All right. So let's say that we've got somebody here that is a management consultant focused in operations. And we work with middle market size companies doing management consulting. What's that video look like? What's, is it one video? Is it 100 videos? Or, how do we start to go about that? Where's your like initial gut reaction to this?
So the 3 keys of marketing, we're going to do all 3. So first, give them a message that they care about. Okay. So this isn't what you think they need. It's what they want to hear. Okay. So you may tell them something like, hey, we've helped companies like yours exit in as short as X for, these types of valuations or multipliers.
Okay.
If that's what you have to sell, you've got to, don't be coy, don't be too clever. There's a lot of people who, again, you're talking to the wrong agency guy. I don't love all the flowery, clever words. I don't think that that's productive and efficient in the business world. I think that's great for business to consumer, but we're talking business to business about an important decision. They need to know you're legit and you're there for business, right? On platforms like, I get solicited everywhere. On platforms like LinkedIn, I expect business deals. I'm getting solicited on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and DMs on all these places. The key thing to me is to not be false, duplicitous, not come in sliding in just saying like, hey, I want to be a friend. Can I connect with you? Right? How many of you have an inbox right now full of people saying, look, we have mutual connections. Let's be friends. And you say, yeah. And seconds later,
they're like, hey, would you like to buy my thing?
Right. You get pitched. Yeah. That is spam. That is disrespectful. Right. Burning bridges. So the reason I love video is it's the closest we have right now to that eye to eye handshake, type of approach, which is how people know they like you. They want to work with you.
So how about repetition? Right. So I don't know. We live in a world where media is somewhat easy to create, right? So I make a video that, is succinct and to the point and talks about solving a problem that somebody is likely to have that I identified as in my audience. Do I keep doing that? Is it the same video? Do we do it over and over again? Like how, in your background, right? In media world, there's a lot that goes to repetition of ad messaging. So how do we think about that in this sort of one-to-many world that you're espousing?
Sure. And this isn't Shawn's opinion. I'm not going to give you like a gut. You can't escape getting my thinking, but this is data-driven. So what we found works is most people will click play on a button that says play. There's something compelling. There's something that they want to watch. There's something that they want to hear. There's something that they want to see. And then I have a slide. I think I'm still sharing slides. I will go back and show you a really fun slide, which is this. If you can see this, have a plan. Intermittent variable reward is this addictive behavior that was introduced by an egghead named B.F. Skinner, and he invented the Skinner box. That's where most people know the name. It's the rat pushes the lever. The rat's only interested in pushing the lever if there's variation. If he gets a pellet every time he pushes the lever, it becomes an ATM machine, which creates zero addiction, right? Nobody loves putting $1 in, getting $1 out.
Right.
That's just predictability. It's beautiful when you're the business owner, and that's what we want to get people away. The original intent of this slide was to show that business owners should be having this level of predictability in their growth, in their lead pipeline. But it's still interesting in what you just said. People like variety,
right?
But people like consistency. So my answer becomes this. We found a play button wherever you put it. If you put it into an email, if you put it into a LinkedIn message, a social media outreach, you put it into your ad, showing that play button. It's a little red triangle. It's ubiquitous. You put that play button in, we see as much as 60, 70% click-through rates because people go, I'll watch this, especially if they know it's only going to be a few minutes. Now, what we see is most people will watch 17 to 30 seconds. It's right in there. 15 to 30 is kind of a nice round range, but at 17 seconds is our data showing us that everybody who clicks will commit through. On average, you're getting 17 seconds. So
all right, so this is fascinating, right? So 17 to 30 seconds, we're sitting here, we have effectively created an hour of video today. But what we're saying is
there were 17 seconds of great stuff in here somewhere.
But that is what you're saying, right? That if we are thinking about how to message the world and make friends with strangers, it's a series of 17 to 30 second videos.
There's a little more nuance to it, but you're not wrong.
I bet there is. I mean, I just made this shit up. So
every 10 seconds. So here's where we're at. Yeah. You've heard the comparison to humans and goldfish. That our attention spans in the modern age are about the same. They test to a similar track of 2 minutes or less in about 20 seconds on average. And what we find is the last 10 seconds just sold the next 10 seconds, which sold the next 10 seconds. And this isn't new. This was P.T. Barnum with a 3-ring circus, 150 years ago. Like this stuff isn't new. We just have quantified it. And you need to know that I'll tell you what you did right. It gets very meta, but this opened with a promise. People knew what they were buying when they got here. You reintroduced it, Dan. You said, hey, we're going to cover these things. Hey, grow your network, 10x, 20x, 30x, turn strangers into connection. Like you're teasing that and putting that there. That's 10 seconds selling the next 10 seconds, selling the next 10 seconds. Yep. We watch video drop off and we can see where it gets dull. Sure. We work with copywriters and we can tell where people quit reading, where people lose interest. We want to see those numbers, and our job is to make things addictive. I got paid a lot of money at some point to work when I was working for World Series of Poker to create an addictive campaign. And they said, we want something that stimulates people to keep. I know a lot more about addiction than I'm sharing because it's such a fun topic to me. But they said, could you create something that makes people want to keep playing and keep coming back? And I said, isn't that what poker is? And they said, yes, but we need you to turn that into marketing. And so I got paid a lot of money to study things like Farmville and other Apple games that were addictive. We studied things like this, slot machines. And what we found is this intermittent variable reward principle is interesting. People want something that's new, but valuable, right? You can't be new, but uninteresting. So the sad truth is we are all content creators, but are you creating entertainment or are you creating information? Okay. To create value, you have to find the marriage of those two things.
Interesting.
I'm telling you not to make a 45-minute webinar. I'm telling you not to do a 4-hour training. I'm telling you don't need to do that stuff to get people interested. The opener we recommend is a 1 to 2 minute video that answers, those 3 of the 4 C's, where you literally say, hey, I'm interested in working with you. I've done things like X, Y, and Z for clients who are like you, and I would love to show you or share with you what we're seeing working in the industry right now.
Hey, Shawn, I'm keeping my eye on the clock here. We got a couple minutes left. So if anybody's got questions, pop them in the box. I'll work through those. One that came up is if I'm getting this correct. So the 4-hour workshop boot camp kind of class, right? In the old world, a lot of people would run those like half-day seminars, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In marketing and growth world, I think you see a lot of, now I'm making this up, I'm going off script. You see like the mastermind sessions, right? So is your thought process here that you're taking a short consumable piece of video, turning that, as a gateway into a longer piece that turns into the mastermind? Like, is that the path that this potentially goes through?
Oh, you're asking me to give away secret stuff.
I think I did.
This is getting into secret sauce. And I told you, like, I'm not, the last thing I want is an exercise in theory. And then I tell people, now, if you want to know the rest of this, you have to pay me money, right? So here's the answer we found right now that's working the best is all of the stuff we're talking about right now is free.
Yep.
People will invest. And the doctoral thesis I need to work on next is there's a relationship between how much time and energy people invest with you to how committed they are to complete it. There's a dollar amount to it, but we found simple things like an application. So someone says they want to request time with you, we'll throw the calendar up and they can book time, right? As soon as they finish booking time on your calendar, we throw an application up. That application can have 3 questions, name, phone number, and email address, or it can have 15 questions. We found the right answer is to make them sell themselves on you.
Okay.
And so it's a question like this. I mean, again, I'll give you the formula. The question is, why are you a good client for Dan, for Value Scout, for insert business name? Why should you work with Relevant? We'll say it differently. We'll say, what about Relevant or Shawn interested you in booking this appointment?
Right.
Here's what we learned. You knew there was a punchline coming. I'm a data guy. We put the calendar up first, then we put the application, and we had higher quantity, lower qualification. We flipped the order. We put the application first. Yep. We had more people finish the survey, first of all, because you want that information.
Right.
And we had more follow through as a percentage, but we had a lower quantity of total scheduled appointments. Now, what game are you in?
Right.
You want 100 calls a month? I tell you that you do not. Even if you have a sales team that you're paying, you don't want to tie up their time and waste efficiency. You would rather have lower, higher qualified calls. And that's the system we're using. Then any additional information after that should be the close. Short channel, right? Whatever's at the top of your funnel. I recommend video. Get to video as soon as you can. Short, punchy video tells them who you are, why they should care about what you're doing, and why you care about them. You see how it's flipped?
Right.
There's a reversed script of what everybody you've been doing for years.
Yeah.
How you say, hey, here's why I'm a great fit for what you're trying to do.
Yep.
I know enough about you to say, here are your goals. I help customers like you hit those goals. Go check out my free material. Then send them over to something. There's case studies, there's downloads. Lead magnet is the general term for it in marketing. Right. I think I'm speaking everybody's language here, which is something you give away for free. My key thing is make that first thing that's free, not the problem you solve, and something that is addictive, something that creates an urgent need for the next thing. The easiest way to do that is to create what we call an open loop, which is you tell them something that they need to know. You give them a term, like I have 4 C's, just to make this very consumable. There are 4 C's that I want to share with you. The first C is credibility. The second one is capability. There are 2 more C's that are critical. I'm not going to discuss right now. But once I've covered this exercise, I want to tell you, I do a full training. That's 45 minutes. Well, that's a 4-hour training. That's where your masterclass goes.
Yeah.
But I've already given you enough value that you can check some of those boxes: credibility, capability, chemistry. You're still waiting for the punchline. You're going to be sold eventually. But by the time in my sales training, I say, never tell them the price until they ask you for the price, because the price is irrelevant until they know what you sell. So This is what you're doing. You're telling the last 10 seconds are to sell the next 10 seconds. And the next 10 seconds, sell the next 10 seconds. Don't worry about how you would close this client. Don't worry about getting this client, into a sales or a conference meeting. Worry about getting this client to push play on your video.
Very cool.
Worry about that video having enough compelling information, enough value to get them to that next step, which I believe is a phone call or a longer format piece of content, then I put it behind a pay gate. So I'll give you that little piece. And then I'm also watching the clock, knowing that I want to be respectful of people's time and give them that valuable information. Charge a low amount. $7 is still making them pull out their credit card and say, I'm interested in this content.
Exactly.
97, 197. Those are the numbers you'll see going around right now, because those are working.
Yep. All right. So, Shawn, this has been awesome. I'm going to recap here real quick. So,
good luck.
I think I heard niche down, know yourself, the 4 C's, like figure out like what you are, what the market is you're chasing. And to really scale the network is video, right? Like that's how we become friends with strangers and I think the other relevant point I hear is 17 to 30-second bites. Do you think I hit that, or did I miss something out that's pretty important?
I think all of that's accurate. I would just, again, there's nuance in all of this. I would say video is the one I've been touting on this, but basically you're looking for whatever's comfortable for them. Podcast works really effectively.
Also true.
For those, So there's different things that fill in that blank. What I did not want to be at the start of this was prescriptive and say, here's the funnel to go and repeat. It really goes back to know who your audience is, know what they care about, know what's interesting to them, know what the next stages of their business are. We mentioned pest control, construction companies. That is not going to be, it should not be the same model as helping a tax planner or a digital marketing agency.
Right. And, you sort of just mentioned channels there. If the game that we're hunting is not in that channel, like if they're not living on LinkedIn, that's probably not where we're doing this. So maybe that's the next thing we talk about. So awesome, Shawn.
You've got to go learn how to get on Clubhouse.
Right. I have no idea how to do that. or I don't know how to get on the TikTok either. But anyway, so Shawn, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time today. Why don't you throw that slide back up just so people can figure out how to contact you and get you directly. I don't have that in front of me anymore, so I can't do that.
Happy to do that. Yeah.
But thanks again, and we'll catch up soon.
Perfect. Yeah. Appreciate everyone's time and attention. Happy to answer these kinds of questions. Good luck growing your business.
Awesome. Thanks again.